Before we get into today's episode, let me ask you something. Do you know what your current level of English really is? Understanding your level is crucial to tracking your progress and ensuring your hard work is paying off. That's why I've created a quick and easy English level test that you can take right now for free. Find out your level instantly. Just head to thebritishenglishpodcast.com/testme or check the link in the show notes. Hello. Welcome to the British English Podcast with me, your host, Charlie Baxter. In today's episode, I'm back in Sydney, opposite the historian that lives down under, also known as Ben Marks. And as he has agreed to help us wrap our heads around some of the great monarchs of England, I am very excited indeed. But before we get into the weeds, let's see if Ben's mic is working. Do say hello.
Hello, check. Hello from Sydney.
Hello from Sydney.
Hello
yes,
from Brookvale.
Brookvale, yes. We're in your workspace right now.
Yeah, so I work in a video agency and we are currently using the boardroom. But it's called the boardroom for another very good reason.
Yes, because there are 9 surfboards in this room. It's so Aussie.
Yeah, well, we're on the northern beaches here, so a lot of our crew surfs. Any of your listeners ever come to Sydney, Brookvale is just set back one suburb back from one of the northern beaches, DY. And so it's very, very easy to go down for a surf. So we call it the boardroom because it is in fact the boardroom, but it also has lots of boards in it.
So is this actually like the equivalent of a bike locker space? What's the correct?
Like a bike rack,
bike
a bike
rack,
room.
Thank you.
Yeah.
A bike rack, yes.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's legitimately a surf rack, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But these are individual employees' boards.
I think they're a collection of my boss's boards.
Right. Is he showing off a bit? Look how many boards I've got, guys.
Yeah. I'll make sure he has a listen to this podcast.
Thank you, Mr. Bossman, for giving us this boardroom. Well, I actually had a little dip in DY today. It was very refreshing. Do you do that at a lunch break ever?
Not often, no. I think I've done it like twice. Basically, you want to get your work done. I'd rather finish up and then go down for an afternoon swim, especially here in Sydney in summer. I mean, we were out just then until about nearing 8 and it was still light. So,
yeah.
And it was quite warm.
Yeah. Yeah, it was really warm.
I mean, we just had to have the aircon on in here for 45 minutes before we started, didn't we?
Yes, and it's unfortunately turned off now because of the noise, so we're going to start to get slimy, wet-looking faces as this episode goes on. So let's crack on.
I've made you a nice hot cup of tea, though.
So when I briefed Ben on this one, he started planning it out and has about 10 monarchs that he was frothing over. Do you use this phrase, frothing over?
Yeah.
This is an Aussie phrase.
We use that, for sure.
So it's not a British one. I learnt it when I came here, and it means incredibly excited, right?
Yeah. Like, you just go on a Friday afternoon, you just go, oh, mate, I can't wait to knock off. I'm absolutely frothing for a beer. Knock off just means ending work.
But yeah, so to keep it lighthearted and for the information to sink in, we're not going to do all 10. That would be a marathon. So we'll just focus our attention on 2 monarchs today, as there is a lot to be said about these 2 fellas. So Ben, are you ready to let battle commence? Have you ever wondered if you're making real progress in your English learning journey? Knowing your level is the key to recognizing your improvements. I have a fantastic tool for you, a free English level test that gives you an instant result. Take a few minutes now to discover your level and continue your learning journey with confidence. Visit thebritishenglishpodcast.com/testme or click the link in the show notes to find out your level of English today.
Yes, indeed. Very good, because that is it's very apt. These 2 kings were famous for their battles, basically.
Yeah,
their military prowess, and that prowess in both their cases, had a drastic impact on the course of English history.
Yeah, I'm excited. I've learned a lot. It's amazing. I'm really excited for the listener to go through what I've gone through. So where would you like to start?
We'll just do it chronologically. We'll talk about the first two in that list that I had.
Yeah, okay, sounds good. So the first one?
His name is Athelstan.
Athelstan.
Yes,
Okay.
King Athelstan. He was born in 894 and he died in 939 and he reigned from the years 924 to 939.
So this is a long, long time ago. And why is he important for us to know?
Yeah, so he was well and truly in the Dark Ages of England. And he was famous because basically he became what many historians consider to be the first king of England. That was in 924. He was the grandson of Alfred the Great, who was, the king of Wessex. And he was the son of King Edward the Elder. And yeah, he basically was the first of the rulers within what we now consider modern day England to unite all of the smaller kingdoms into one bigger kingdom and solidify them under his rule, which sort of was the start of what we now call England.
Wow. So considering your grandfather is known as Alfred the Great, that's pretty impressive to step out of the shadow cast by that guy.
Yeah.
Because he went on to, could we say found England? Can you say that?
Yeah, in essence. And he laid the foundations for the kingdom's future stability. So that's why Athelstan is often referred to as the first king of England due to his success in unifying those territories and creating a single entity.
Okay, so he's a consolidator. He's the great consolidator.
Yes.
Do you reckon his grandchildren called him that? His grandfather was Alfred the Great. Do you reckon he was known as
Athelstan the Consolidator?
Yeah.
Okay, I think he's missing a name. And I was looking at that and I was wondering, this guy did so much good stuff and he's so important. He doesn't even have a nickname like everybody else. Even his father was Edward the Elder. If you're going to have any name, that's not the one you want.
No.
But he doesn't have a name. So honestly, Charlie, let's pitch it to the historians around the world and let's get him officially nicknamed Athelstan the Consolidator.
Yeah, I'm just thinking of those ads that we had, consolidate your debt, when we were younger. That was a lot. On the TV, that was just, are you in debt? Do you need to consolidate your debts into one manageable debt?
Is this a thing that you just remember vividly from your childhood?
Yeah. This is always on. I think it's probably on now. Did you, as like an ad in the TV in the UK, did you have this at all in Australia? I suppose you weren't in debt. The UK is probably more in debt individually.
Yeah. We live in a golden country. Yeah. We sometimes take baths in just solid coins.
But yeah, so the Great Consolidator brought the Angles and the Saxons together along with a lot of others. Is there any more context you could give us here?
Yeah, so the context of this is it's pretty important to understand exactly what he did. You've got to imagine before Athelstan, England was a collection of separate Anglo-Saxon kingdoms, and they were each like these mini kingdoms that were within the current boundaries of what is modern England. And these mini kingdoms were each ruled by their own king. This period before Athelstan is often referred to as the Anglo-Saxon Heptarchy. So hept,
Yeah.
7. Oct is 8, like octagon, octopus.
October. Oh, God.
It was a heptarchy, which means 7 kingdoms. 7 kingdoms.
7.
Yes. I just had a thought. The 7 kingdoms, is this where I know George R.R. Martin for Game of Thrones took a lot of his ideas from English history. The 7 kingdoms, that's probably where he got that idea.
Yeah, I knew that. Yeah.
Honestly, I'm not even joking. He took
I don't know. Yeah.
The Starks and Lannisters came from the Yorks and Lancasters in the War of the Roses, and he did this throughout all of his books. He borrowed from real history. So, yeah, I just thought of that then.
The War of the Roses was a lot later, though.
Yes, we won't talk about that now.
Yes.
Yeah. It was just a thought.
Yeah.
There were, in fact, more than 7, but there were 7 main ones.
That's funny. That's rude of the others, like disregarding the others. Actually, psychologists say your short-term memory is 7 plus or minus 2 chunks of information, the average person, right?
Okay.
So maybe that's why They just did 7. They were like, oh, no one's going to remember the rest.
That is a thought. I like it. I like it.
But I think TikTok is changing that.
You're on TikTok today.
October 8. Yeah, I think it's probably like 5 plus or minus 2 now. How many things do you think you can remember? You were pretty good at the password earlier. You could remember the whole thing. That was quite a few digits.
I tell you what, I was telling you before, I'm feeling a bit sharper today because after work I've been going home and studying for the last 3 nights.
Yeah.
I'm actually feeling pretty sharp
Nice.
today.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you could be, what, 10 plus or
I
minus
reckon
2?
I'm about 10. Yeah.
I think you're above average.
Right now. Give me a couple of beers and that drops off significantly.
But yeah, going back to the history of England.
Yeah.
So what were those 7 called?
So these kingdoms were called Wessex, Mercia, Northumbria, East Anglia, Kent, Sussex, and Essex. And a few of those, the names you'll obviously recognise are still around today.
Yeah, they are.
Yeah.
Not Mercia.
Don't know. Yeah.
I don't think so.
Definitely Essex and Kent. Is Northumbria?
So I just Googled Mercia. It was annexed by Wessex in the early 10th century. The West Saxon rulers divided it into shires. These shires survived mostly intact until 1974 and even today still largely follow their original boundaries.
Really? Till today?
Till today, yeah.
That's actually really crazy. We're talking about over 1,000 years ago.
Yeah.
That's really nuts.
Yeah, it is. I mean, a lot of these things have had a knock-on effect up until today. Like I can still see some evidence of it, but we'll talk about that in a moment. So you've named the 7.
Yep.
What was before the Anglo-Saxon kingdoms then?
Okay, so before the Anglo-Saxon kingdoms, basically what we have to do is we have to understand who the Angles and the Saxons were. They were Germanic tribes that invaded England after the decline of the Roman Empire and their exit from England in 410 CE. By the way, CE is the same thing as AD. It just means current era. It's just a modern sort of move away from the religious usage of AD.
Ah, okay. Yeah, I did actually ask Google what CE was, but I didn't know why it was replacing AD.
It's just to move away from the church so that everyone in the world can use the same term.
Okay.
So basically Rome fell. It was sacked in 455 by the Vandals, a Visigoth tribe, and then the whole empire fell in 476. But before then, in 410, they did start withdrawing from England because they were starting to, lose all of their money and they were starting to decline.
Okay.
So basically, after they left, the Angles and the Saxons, who were northern Germanic tribes, made a decision that they were going to take advantage of this and come over and crush the Celtic tribes, the Britons, who had been living there before them.
Right, under Roman rule.
Yes.
Before the Romans?
Before the Romans, they were local Britons or Celtic tribes.
Celtic tribes,
Yeah.
then the Romans, then
The Romans came and ruled over the Celtic tribes.
Right. Oh, okay.
Yep.
Yeah.
The Celts still live there.
Yeah.
Then the Roman Empire fell. The Romans left. The Celtic tribes were left in disarray. And the Angles and Saxons took their opportunity to come and invade and take over England.
And they had good roads to access everywhere.
Yep, exactly. The Romans set up England with great infrastructure.
Yeah. Come on in.
Exactly. It was perfect. For
Yeah.
them. Yeah. So they became, that's where we get the term Anglo-Saxon from.
And I read that, so they were separate Germanic tribes that forged as they came into England. The Angles, the Saxons, some others that I can't remember. And then they became Anglo-Saxon. And the etymology of England, I think they were Englaland, like Angles, Englaland, and then it became
England. That sounds
England.
That sounds about right. Yeah. I can't confirm that, but that sounds right. Yeah. So basically the Angles and the Saxons were separate and they had their own separate little kingdoms, which we were talking about.
Yeah. And then they came together.
They did come together. And I think it was Athelstan who basically, because he unified the country as England, that created the first Anglo-Saxon unity and culture.
Right.
Yes.
Okay. And when did the Vikings come in?
So the Vikings were also raiding England frequently during this period, and they were doing it often in an alliance with the Scots and the Picts. So up in Scotland in the north, they had the Scots and the Picts. Now they were distinct tribes, but they were both in Scotland.
Right. Okay.
And they would team up often with the Vikings. This is towards the end of the Viking Age. The Vikings were strong at that point, and they would invade England constantly.
So they would come over from modern day Denmark, or around there.
Denmark, Norway, that sort of area.
So they take boats over the North Sea, come in around Yorkshire, I heard, around there.
They would they would come in from all parts of the north. I mean, they even went as far over as Ireland, and they were actually they started up Dublin.
I heard that. Yeah. That's insane.
Yeah.
That's mad. They got all the way over there.
Yeah. Into Scotland, and at one point they even took over Mathiv. Although I took over Mathiv, they managed to take over large swathes of England. Actually, now before we were talking about Athelstan's grandfather, Alfred the Great.
Yes.
Now I'm about to tell you why he was called Alfred the Great.
Oh.
When the Vikings came in and took over large swathes of England at one point, they were halted from further expansion by Alfred the Great. And he signed a treaty with Guthrum, I think is his name, in 886, who was the Viking king. And basically, the treaty meant that they wouldn't expand any further, but they did set up what was called the Danelaw, which was a huge area across northern England down into the sort of the middle part of England, and they lived side by side with the English. It wasn't until Athelstan that they were driven out.
Oh. So hang on. So Danish Vikings, they came over, they even got over to Ireland, said hello and built up Dublin for them. Then Athelstan's great-grandfather, not great-grandfather, but his grandfather who was great, agreed with the Danes on a sort of border. Things ticked along nicely. And then his grandson, Athelstan, who's desperate to show how great he is, decides to disregard this treaty and sends the Vikings packing.
That's right, exactly.
Back into the North Sea to modern-day Denmark.
Exactly. You said it perfectly.
That's a bit rude of him, isn't it? Like he's kind of ruined what his sorry, I keep doing that. His grandfather, who was great,
his great grandfather.
He's undone all his treaty work.
Yeah, he has. But to be fair, he sort of did a better job, didn't he?
Yeah. He founded England.
Yep.
Yeah. Imagine how proud he would be to know how far England has gone.
I know, right? I was going to say something political, but I won't.
So how did he do that? Was there a big battle?
He did. He went to war with them. The battle was called the Battle of... Now, I might get this word wrong in terms of pronunciation. It's the Battle of Brunanburh. The Battle of Brunanburh.
Okay, let's have a... That sounds better.
That sounds like it. Brunanburh. The Battle of Brunanburh. That sounds much more like it.
Yeah.
All right, we're going to go with the Battle of Brunanburh.
So what happened in this battle? Did Athelstan did he get involved?
Yeah. So basically this was a big battle.
But as in, did he fight?
Yeah. I mean, look, the details of this particular battle are pretty scarce. We don't know the numbers. We don't even know exactly where it was fought.
What are we doing here then, Ben?
I think they think it was fought somewhere in York.
Okay.
I think that's what
No, I think I could be confused with another battle because I've read a lot of information in the last couple of days about battles. But one of the big ones is just a mystery of the location.
That's this one.
Okay.
This one, they don't really know exactly where it was fought. Look, the records back then are not great.
No.
Good record keeping and sort of modern ways of doing things came in with William the Conqueror.
We might talk about him later.
Did you see what I did there?
Yeah, it was very good.
So there's scarce records. There's things like tapestries that depict the battle.
Yeah.
But some, it's not, the records haven't been kept well. We really don't know the numbers and things are guessed at, and we don't even know the exact location. So.
Okay. But what we do know, so this battle of
Brunanburh
was just him versus the Vikings?
No, it wasn't. So it was a coalition of Norse and Scottish forces, and they came down. They had a little battle, and he won. Athelstan won.
Very good. I mean, two sides to the coin, isn't there? I mean, that's horrible of us for the Vikings.
I feel like I want to tell you the name of the Viking king because it's so Viking. It's Olaf Guthfridsson.
Wow.
Get this, he was the Norse king of Dublin.
Wow, so they had a Viking king
who lived in Dublin.
In Dublin.
I guess so, yeah.
Mad.
And
I would never have guessed that. Fun fact, you probably definitely know this, but the first thing we think of as Brits, and I assume Aussies, of Vikings, the horned helmets, right?
Yes.
That's false. That's not real. They didn't have horns.
Can I guess where this is from? Or am I going to ruin your fact?
No, it's not real. I mean, that's the fact mainly.
Yeah.
Go on.
I was just going to say that it was an affectation of the opera.
The opera did encourage it afterwards, but it was something about exaggerating the evil in them. And I think they were known for their brutality. And so they kind of depicted them as these horned creatures.
That makes a lot of sense.
But somebody was describing how stupid these horns would be in battle. Like they'd get caught constantly on everything. And also in battle, the opponent could grab them and just chuck them anywhere.
Yeah, that's what I'd be doing.
So yes, no horns on the Vikings. I found a poem from this battle. It wasn't documented very well, apparently, but we do have a poem. And this poem, the battle is the subject of one of the oldest known war poems in the English language. Would you like to hear the first 5 lines?
Oh, absolutely. And can you do it in a little poetry voice?
Okay, so I need like a sort of green sleeves kind of...
Okay, let's get this up for you. Okay.
That's not green sleeves at all.
I'm going to get you some green sleeves.
In this year, King Athelstan, Lord of Warriors, ring giver to men, and his brother also, what a bad rhyme, Prince Edmund won eternal glory. In battle with sword edges, around Brunanburh, they split the shield wall. That's it. That's the end. But what a great second line.
Honestly.
Ring giver to men and his brother also. But yeah, the oldest known war poem in the English language there.
Ring giver to men. Okay, once again, I'm just going to say, is this where Tolkien got the idea of...
Oh.
I mean, you see it. As you're going through like history, these guys were he was a professor of linguistics, and so he would have read all this poetry.
Right.
I wonder if that line, I mean, you like that line?
Yeah. I mean, to me, it sounded like really basic English, but I'll give him a break. It was the first poem ever written. So we've got the context of all of this. We understand the Battle of Brunanburh. But linguistically, so let's just recap. So we've got Celtic language to start off with. Then we've got Roman, Italian, kind of Latin right?
influence, yeah.
And then we've got the Germanic tribes. So we've got Celtic, Latin, Germanic, and then Danish.
Yeah, so there's definitely...
Viking, whatever that was.
There's definitely Norse language that's threaded throughout the English language.
Okay.
We have a lot of influences in the English language, but the English language, as far as I'm aware, the Anglo-Saxon language is primarily what we speak now.
Oh, okay.
That was what they called Old English.
Right. And then there was Middle English.
Middle English would probably be, now this is a bit of a guess, but I would say that's when the Normans came in, and we'll talk about that in a bit, but there was a mishmash of the Norman language with the Anglo-Saxon language.
Which is essentially French. Can we say Norman French or not really?
It's French, 1,000 years ago.
Yeah. Okay, well, let's take a break now because we've come to the end of Athelstan, and we will come back and talk about William the Conqueror. So, what I was going to say, William the Conqueror, first things first, do we think this was a self-proclaimed nickname?
I think that some of these guys probably did want to be called certain things, and they probably whispered to one of their mates in court. They probably went, oi, tell everyone that it's a good idea. Just pretend it's like regular conversation. Bring it up like it's just organic and just say, wait, do you reckon we should call him Conqueror?
What was that?
What? I don't know. I was just thinking, don't tell him I said this because he would hate it. But do you reckon I reckon we should call him William the Conqueror.
Yeah, do you reckon that would go down well?
No, I think that sounds shit. No, shit. Hey, William, I put it out there and yeah, they said it was shit.
Oh, I'm just going to go conquer a load of shit, and then they will see. They will see who the conqueror is now.
Actually, that's not a bad idea. I think there's a country above us we could maybe...
Yeah, got to learn to swim first.
Yeah. Do we have any of those, what are they called, ships?
Yes, we do.
Yeah.
We do.
All right, well, let's just finish this turkey leg. And we'll get these 1,000 men out of this massive dining room, pour all the beer down the drains, put some on the ships, and let's head over to England.
Brilliant. So, guys, we were in France. We've gone across the Channel. I was about to say Channel Tunnel. The Channel.
We went on the Eurostar.
That's funny because it's so modern.
They've always had the Eurostar. Yep.
So, for the listener, we're assuming that he's on English turf yet.
Yeah, we can say that. There is a story that needs to be told before that battle, though.
Go for it.
So William does come up to England and he does challenge the current king at the time, King Harold.
Okay.
For the throne. But there's a little more to it.
Before that, we talked about him being the conqueror and that. So he was a Norman duke, yeah?
Yes, in what's in Normandy in modern day France.
Which is the north of France.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And yeah, he was a very powerful man, very powerful noble. And he took an opportunity to come over and claim the throne, which he believed was his. He believed he had a rightful claim to the throne. Yes.
Okay.
Now, this came about because the previous king of England, Edward the Confessor, died and he had no children. So he had no direct lineage to take the crown. So this threw up a battle for succession.
Right.
I have an interesting fact for you, though.
Yeah?
Just about Edward the Confessor. He was called the Confessor because of his extreme religious piety and devotion, hence confession. England was Catholic at this time. He was also the king responsible for the construction of Westminster Abbey in London, which was consecrated in 1065, shortly before his death, as a Catholic church.
Wow.
Yeah.
So he would confess all the time. I also heard that he would spend a lot of his time in Normandy.
Yeah, he would. Yes, exactly.
And so he was telling everyone, oh, you could be king. Maybe you can be king. Sorry for being such a sinful bastard. You can be king. So he was flirting around telling everyone you could be king. So,
yeah. Well, actually, Harold had spent some time in Normandy and he'd met William and he'd actually professed an oath to William.
Ah.
This is before Edward II died, Edward the Confessor.
Right.
He came back to England and then after Edward's death, Harold took the throne and then William the Conqueror was like, what? You professed an oath to me. That's my throne.
Ah.
Yes, so he believed he had a claim to the throne.
Okay.
There were actually 3 claimants to the throne. The first man to take the throne, as we said, after Edward's death was the Anglo-Saxon king Harold Godwinson. He was the richest and most powerful nobleman at the time in England, or one of. And also Harold's sister, Edith, had been married to King Edward the Confessor. So he had that familial, very close familial. He believes the line of succession should go to him.
Yeah, right.
As Edward had no sons.
Okay, so he was an aristocrat, right?
He was a nobleman. I don't know if they would use that term back then. Definitely a nobleman.
A nobleman, okay. And this is based on the feudal system that you taught me about.
Mm-hmm.
So France had the feudal system before England.
Mm-hmm.
And William the Conqueror brought the feudal system over to England afterwards, yeah?
That's right, yeah.
So these guys, just to recap, because, you taught me about the noblemen and stuff. So they would be given land by the king for a service that they did. And then that would kind of build a hierarchy.
Yeah, so basically, just in a very basic sense, that feudal system was, the king would hand out lands to certain wealthy men who, in return, would pledge their military support and raise troops for the overall army for the king.
Right, okay.
It was basically, it was trading land for defense.
Yeah.
And obviously, England already had this system to a point, but I think the Norman invaders had a more sophisticated system.
Okay, so it wasn't reinventing the wheel or anything. They had a system in place, but France brought over a better version.
A more sophisticated system, yeah.
Okay, so we've got William of Normandy coming over to complain, also to claim.
There's a complaint in there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the other ones?
So basically we had Harold Godwinson, who was the Anglo-Saxon who took the throne. Then we have William of Normandy coming over, claiming that he'd been promised the throne by Edward and that Harold had actually sworn an oath to him when he visited Normandy. So he believed he had a claim to the throne. So he came up from France. And then we had a third player, another Harold, but spelt Harald, Hardrada of Norway, a Viking king. He was also contesting the succession.
Why were the Norwegians trying to get in on the action then?
Okay, so his claim to the throne was based on an agreement between his predecessor, Magnus the Good, and the earlier king of England. He was trying to make a claim on something that had happened a couple of generations earlier.
Bloody hell.
It's a mess.
It must have been so messy, especially, without an Excel spreadsheet or something. There's so much hearsay. No, he said this. No, but he said this. And she said that.
Yeah.
So do we now talk about the only thing I remember about William the Conqueror, the Battle of Hastings? We will be leaving the free version of this episode here for today. But if you did want to continue listening to this conversation, then head over to the BritishEnglishPodcast.com, where you can sign up to the Premium Podcast or the Academy. The Premium Podcast gives you the ad-free version with transcripts, a full glossary and flashcards, whereas the Academy gives you all of that plus a whole lot more, including vocab video lessons, writing assignments, weekly Zoom classes, and you can also get paired with a new speaking partner of a similar level to yours each month to really get your speaking practice in. But if you were just here for the free version of this episode, then I thank you very much. Congratulations for getting to the end of this part, and I hope to see you back here next week for another episode. I've been your host, Charlie, on the British English Podcast. Thank you for listening to today's episode. Before you go, make sure you know where you stand in your English learning journey. I've created a free English level test that you can take right now to find out your exact level. It's quick, easy, and gives you instant results. Head to theBritishEnglishPodcast.com/testme or check the link in the show notes. Because tracking your progress helps you stay on track. We can't use track twice, guys. No, let's do that again. Yep, we don't have time. Oh. All right, we'll just delete this last sentence then.